Adam Bierman back with Breezin with Bierman and my luxurious new digs, my new set. I feel so comfortable. I feel like I'm in Miami. We have an exciting show coming up. My preamble. We're going to have medical correspondent Dr. Vivian Schnaidman. Will be doing a Skype interview with relationship expert Laura Doyle. She's been on The View and CNN and MSNBC. You name it, she's been there. I think she's in England now. It's going to be there'll be different segments on different shows throughout the year. Loren Lepre is going to be with a member of the Hagan family who does the Monster.com, a huge festival where people who've been in horror movies show up, some in costume, and Val Kilmer's been there in the past, John Cusack. It's in Cherry Hill twice a year. Very excited. Loren Lepre will be doing the interview alone. I'm not territorial, as long as he mentions me, the supreme leader, heads this circus. Jody Wood is back with Robert Downey Jr. It keeps getting better. We're going to also do an improv roundtable, what's trending. If Raya does show up, I might have to put him on double secret probation, but he would know because I just said that, didn't he? And what else? Oh yeah, these shows are going to be more put on IMDb. I might get Marty Davis to do that. We might be next then going on to more cable access stations. We're going syndication. Who knows? Maybe we even get expensive sponsors. I'll have podcasts. I'll become famous. I'll quit my day job. It's getting really exciting. So check out. Excuse me, can't take me anywhere. Check out the exciting Breezin with Bierman.
Hello, this is Loren Lepre sitting in on Breezin and Bierman. I will be taking this segment, and I'm very happy to have this special guest here with me today. South Jersey has been blessed for the last 14 years with a convention that takes place twice in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. This convention is called the Monster Mania Convention, where people who loved horror movies could come see their favorite horror icons and meet them, all walks of life, and other icons from outside of the horror movie genre too. But it is run by the infamous Hagan family, and I'm very happy to welcome one of the Hagan members that helped run it, Dave Hagan. How we doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself, Loren? Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
It's South Jersey. We stick together here.
No, you have to.
Yep. All right, so Dave, basically, I got a lot of questions for you.
Go nuts.
You guys
Go nuts.
But where did it all come from? What made your family decide to take a dive in and take this big chance?
Dive in's a very good word.
Mm-hmm.
So my father and I, actually primarily my father had a web store where he sold horror merchandise and memorabilia, and we did conventions. And around June of 2002, we were driving home from a convention in Pittsburgh, and if you've ever seen my father drive, you don't want him to drive. So we're driving like 6 or 7 hours back from Pittsburgh area to South Jersey, Philadelphia, and it's like me driving the whole way. And just kind of stay aware, we just started having good conversations, and it led into like, hey, what if we did our own convention? And like, who would you get? How would you do it? What would you do? Some of the conventions do now, and what would you do differently? So again, this went on for a few hours. Probably within a couple of weeks, it's like, yo, dude, we're having a convention. And he already, just through the relationships that he had with several of the stars, he was able to start getting stars to sign on for the convention. We didn't have a date, we didn't have a hotel, but we had a convention. We had stars. We had it's kind of like, hey, I'm going on a trip, and you're going on a car trip, and you don't have a car. So.
I guess the first one must have been the most butterfly ones. Like, is this going to work? Oh God,
Yeah. And again, it is a substantial financial investment, because my dad had to take out we all have and still have day jobs, and he cashed out his 401k and put everything into this. So a lot of it was, hey, can we just not lose our shirt? Can we do a convention and not lose our shirt? Because at that point, you just don't want to lose more money than you've already invested, and especially with the first one, you kind of get the iceberg analogy. Yep. Where you can see only 10% of the iceberg, and the other 90% is underwater, and you think you know what you're getting into. You have no, until it happens, you have no idea.
Gotcha. So then you have them basically for for the following few years, basically every 6 months, you have your spring show and you got your summer show.
Yeah,
Is what you guys basically formed into.
Yeah.
And so once you got your bearings going, like it was a really good feeling for your family. Like, wow, it looks like we're here to stay.
Yeah. I mean, from the from the first one on, like, you don't know if the anxiety with like, hey, are 10 people going to show up, or 1,000 people going to show up, and you just didn't know. And fortunately, a lot of people came to the point where we'd outgrown our original hotel, and we've been at the hotel that we're at now, the Cherry Hill Crown Plaza. It used to be the Hilton as well. We've been there since our second show, and even from the second show on, we've been able to get, like, we had like Robert Englund for like the second show, and for me, growing up, literally, like, not too many things I was afraid of, but like Freddy Krueger, like, he was frightening, I mean, especially in the mid '80s, it was like Freddy was the man, and to be able to get him and like, well, we got Robert Englund. It was huge. I mean, and from the first show, I mean, we did have Doug Bradley, who was Pinhead, and Ben Chapman, who was the creature from the Black Lagoon, and I forgot about Betsy Palmer. That was
at every one of them.
Okay, thank you, Laura. that was one of her first like horror conventions, and we had paired her up with Kane Hodder, so it was kind of like a like a first like mother and son reunion.
So
kind of thing.
like, obviously your father's the big cheese of the whole thing. And like your brother Doug, he takes care of all the vendors. Is that kind of like his position?
He's always been very good with like hands-on stuff and dimensions, and that's kind of where his career's taken him as well. So, hey, vendor layouts and positioning.
So you guys are basically, you guys are still working besides this, or?
No, it'd be.
So basically, you're kind of like when I'm in the film business. You leave your day job, but then your real job starts. Is it kind of like a full-time thing for all you guys?
It runs hot and cold, and like we have like a little bit of downtime. Now that we have like a system running, but I mean probably between. We actually have a third show around the Baltimore, Maryland area, and so around from like late October to probably like the New Year, things are kind of slower just because a lot of stars don't want to they want to wait till the holidays are over to like start signing things.
You said a key thing. So you have another show. You have another show in Maryland. You've been doing for the last couple of years. So are you trying to branch out more of the tri-state? You guys going to go nuts and try to?
We had actually back in '09 when we originally branched out was Connecticut, and unfortunately that was a show like we had Bruce Campbell and Robert Englund, and for probably more than a few reasons it didn't seem like it worked out or drew too well, and it could have been like the location, but
could be the people up there too.
We tried doing that. Yeah, I mean, again, I think it was like no soul item, but I mean, it was a lot of time and a lot of money for things to.
You guys have been doing this since 2003. I believe it was September 26th weekend. Was the first one?
And that's actually my late grandfather's birthday, so it kind of worked out that. I don't know if it worked out or my dad worked it out, but it was kind of like a nice gesture to him, because like my father, would always go like see like the classics with my grandfather, and that was kind of their thing. And when we were getting brought up, it's like, hey, let's go see some inappropriate movies.
So you guys have been doing this 14 years now.
Yeah,
so
wow,
you guys are kind of, I think, over the hump. I think you guys kind of. I always say this to me and all the people that go all the time. You kind of almost had everyone who was everybody that was available. There's not too many more. And every time we say that, you guys seem to pull off a whole new, oh my God, wow, they bringing those people in, like how does it get harder for you guys to kind of keep it, I guess, fresh?
I absolutely. But I think as it does get harder, because you now try, there's a lot more competition than there was 14 years ago. So not only is there a lot more competition, but internally, just the way we're kind of wired, like every show, we just try to do like the best show possible. And I hate to say I feel like our biggest competition was our last show. Like, okay, hey, how can we beat that?
The hell of a lineup you guys had.
Yeah, and you just always try. I mean, not just the last show, but like every show, it's like, okay, how do we outdo ourselves? And
So for this audience with Princeton TV, name some of the people you had your last show, just so they realize the caliber of guests.
Oh yeah. Last show we had John Cusack, who
everybody knows John.
John Cusack. He's like one of the guys like everybody knows and loves John Cusack.
Yep.
So it was a little bit outside of the horror genre. I mean, he's done.
And you had the Stranger Things, was it?
Oh yeah. We had two of the kids from Stranger Things. I'm trying to think of the character of Lucas and Toothless. Were the two.
But they're
characters.
an in now. They're like an in now show.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We had a little bit of a Shining reunion with Danny Lloyd and
The twins.
Lisa and Louise Burns, who were I mean, so it's basically the kids from The Shining, which is awesome. We had a pretty solid Thing reunion from John Carpenter's Thing from the early '80s, which again still like. If you look at it,
you had Wilford Brimley too. This guy had Wilford Brimley.
I mean, when we started getting like that information and speaking with his agent, I hate to say it was like, he's still alive. I mean, that was kind of the natural reaction.
Yeah.
But to get to see him at the Q&A that we had with the Thing cast, I mean, he was like amazing. It was like I love this guy. Like,
I gotta say too, the Q&As at these conventions is like. It's amazing because you get a chance to speak with these people from these movies that like you don't get an opportunity to do that. And I would have to say, if everybody thinks they know something about a movie, when you're seeing for an hour, hey, it could be the Lost Boys up there, it could be the cast of Friday the 13th. Hearing stories from their mouths is just absolutely amazing. Like, you find out all this stuff, and then like it's this amazing time.
No,
it really is.
And I mean, especially like all the subtleties, or like even with the Thing reunion, like one of the big mysteries of the Thing might have been like revealed if you're able to watch that Q&A at online somewhere. But I mean, it was cool. Like that's how they did that, and especially having Dean Cuddy, who was the director of photography, and again, a lot of things you don't like. He had a lot of insight that this is what I did here and this is what I did there. So. Not only the stars, but the people behind the scenes as well that make things happen.
Yeah. Do you guys, as a family, I guess the answer is probably more towards no, but like when it's happening, right? I mean, you got a lot of people that you're serving many masters that weekend.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys really have time during that at all to really enjoy it, or is it constant go?
No. I mean, you're basically. Even probably like the Wednesday to Thursday before the show is complete like game time, and once the show starts rocking and rolling, I mean it's all just you're on the whole time, and I usually have a chance like there's a brief moment in time like Sunday mornings, usually when I have to go around and pay actors per diems and stuff like that. That I'll have a chance to go and like shake hands, and you try to do things. It just doesn't like I saw John Cusack for like I was around him for like 2 minutes, and that was
at your convention,
and that was it. I mean, and my dad will use the analogy. It's kind of like having like a huge house party that you don't get to enjoy because you're too busy.
You're the host.
Yeah, and that's our job, making sure.
How's the? You guys safe to say you guys take that following Monday off and just sleep straight through, or you still answering?
I'd started to take the following Monday off, and originally after like the first show, the first show I took the following Monday off, and that was just. It felt like you were almost on like 24 hours a day for like 3 or 4 days, so I'd taken that day off. And then you get what we call like con colds, because it just it feels like dealing with a lot of people in enclosed spaces, and there's, I don't know, it seems like more of like a breeding ground to get sick. So, taking a day off just to like get back to a normal sleep routine.
How do you feel though? I'm particularly one person that did this because I've been at every one of these. Like, I know like 80 people through your convention that I consider like family. I see them every 6 months. They all come around from the tri-state. I mean, it's amazing some of the people that I've now call my friends, all because of this convention. I mean, you guys, that still hit you guys as a family? Like, wow, we're bringing all this together, making families?
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, so speaking of that, literally speaking about making families, my cousin lives around like the Northern Virginia area, and before he had married his wife had come to our Maryland convention. They never met before, and she met Robert Englund, and one of her like dating profile pictures was like her with Robert Englund. Mm-hmm. My cousin saw it and was like, "Yo, what's up?" And then that led to like them getting married and having a kid and all that good stuff. So I mean, like literally, it was just like a very weird like moment where it's like, oh, like we are bringing families together. And again, the family and friends atmosphere is, kind of when you're surrounded by like minds. It's kind of like being at a concert of a band that you like. Pretty much everybody there is cool. I mean, like 90% of the people there are cool, and you can just strike up a conversation with anybody there. And like, hey, you want to talk Killer Clowns from Outer Space? It's like, boom, like I gotcha. Whereas in normal life, people don't know what that is. Like, so like, again, it feels like these are my people. Like this is where I belong.
Amazing time, and recently I heard you were in you finally got to be in a horror movie.
Oh yeah. No, it was awesome. I was starring as John. I love starring is a good word, but John in Dark Military Support. Yeah. And it was like, hey, would you you would contact me? Hey, do we get killed in a horror movie? And it was like, I had to reward these guys. These guys have been so good to me. I figured, hey, I mean. No. You just got to kill my brother in the next one, and then we'll
do that. They're gonna make sequels just to kill Doug.
Yeah, you can make. Oh yeah. You might want to after a while.
Crazy. So it's like your family though. I mean, you guys have really done an amazing job.
Oh yeah, thank you.
I think on behalf of everybody watching. This is going to make your Facebook page anyway, isn't it?
I hope it makes a Facebook page.
But really, on behalf of everybody that goes to these conventions, I think we just say, thank you to your father, Dave, and Doug, and you guys are really done you guys put a staple on the East Coast. I mean, you're one of the biggest ones out there. So
yeah.
You gave me personally some amazing weekends of my life. I grew up loving the Lost Boys more than anything, and because of you, I got to hang out with almost every cast member at some point. I never thought growing up wow,
it's the same thing for me. It never gets old. You know what I mean? Hey, here's somebody I love and I can meet them.
So go ahead, right there, and plug your next show.
Okay, Monster Mania Con 37, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, August 18th through 20th, Cherry Hill Crowne Plaza. We have Val Kilmer, we have Kate Beckinsale, and we have a number of other great guests, including Sid Hagan, Bill Moseley. And come check us out, www.monstermania.net.
Dave Hagan. Loren, representing Adam Bierman Show. We're out.
All right, man. Yeah, thank you.
Adam Bierman back with Breezin with Bierman. We're growing. We have, again, Jody Wood, host for life, a week. I don't know what Jody's doing. I want him for life. He can,
If I'm around every month.
Yeah. If he's there, he comes. Loren Lepre has been coming, bringing in huge guests. But Jody kind of tops everybody because he's back with Robert Downey Jr. And I'm excited about this. Okay, Jody's here to continue the dialogue.
Yeah, I just think, again, Robert, thank you for coming on again. It's so good to see you again.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. I know you got a busy schedule, but I wanted to start off. We talked about a lot of things the last time, but let's start talking a little bit more about your father. We touched on it last time. Your father was such an eclectic filmmaker. What was it like growing up in the Downey household? I mean, before you thought you'd be a professional actor, you're in the arts every day. So what was that?
Well, by the way, I don't know that I ever really had that thought that this is what I'm going to do. It never occurred to me to do anything else. Huh. And nowadays, I think about it in the context of how absolutely competitive it is to go out and land a job anywhere, from a background of extraordinary training to just being someone who was on a reality show for a couple days. But the way I grew up was my mom and dad were actually kind of squares who found themselves being entrenched in this kind of counterculture, underground filmmaking world. And so it was all the people you would expect to have been around Greenwich Village that time. And so it was really natural to me, and I took comfort in being around the situation, whether it was my father after work playing poker with, pick a name from somebody who was in that world, to him and my mother trying to beat each other with what a funny line would be in this transitionary scene in the movie.
Well, what was it? Was he a powerful presence in your life, or was it?
It's funny. Joe Wright, the director, told me he was doing this. I think it was a television series, and the guy who was playing an actor for a British king, he was like, he couldn't get the authority of the figure, and he just couldn't grasp it. And what Joe did was he had everybody in the rehearsal room stand up when this guy walked in, and so it invested him with the authority. And
You should do that for me. But
what I remember
People get up for you for a different reason.
is growing up around someone who people had a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of heard, is that, and particularly around the time that his film Putney Swope came out.
Yeah.
I saw that movie with my grandpa.
Yeah.
I just saw Breast. I was quite happy.
It really
very young.
was kind of a mind-blowing satire of advertising and racism and power and corruption and all that stuff. Literally just brilliant. And that's what I heard a lot. People saying, it was like, my dad was just brilliant. My dad was this and that, So,
Groundbreaking, risk taking.
yeah, and I kind of remember, back in the circa 1960 or so, it was really hip in the village to have these big T-shirts with decals on them, and somebody got my dad a blue T-shirt with a Superman logo on it. And I just remember we lived in this loft, and I think I saw him sitting wearing this Superman T-shirt in this king's throne that we had, and I think I saw it on TV, and anyway, I think everyone's dad is kind of that personification of that archetype of power and virility,
Was he gentle to you? Was he? I mean, he was working a lot, so.
Working a lot, very kind of mid-century kind of guy. You know what I mean? More James Dean than James Franco. Both great individuals, just different centuries.
Your father, was he gentle guy to you? He was working a lot, so.
Working a lot, very kind of postmodern century kind of guy.
Yeah.
More James Dean than James Franco. Both great individuals, different centuries. And I think of it, I kind of think of it, I have a 24-year-old and a 5-year-old son and now a 2-year-old daughter. And I think we always think of it in the context, at least I always do, and I know you have kids and it's great and you love them, and that's kind of the whole point. But I find myself thinking in context of my parenting in terms of my parents. And I realized that as nutso and as gonzo as that emerging generation was, obviously there's like casualties littering the seascape of that generation, but I kind of remember a very thoughtful and considerate and affectionate and attentive dad. Now,
That's great.
I choose to remember that because
Why do you choose to?
so
Select it.
unconsciously, there's times when your dad's in the military or your dad's working a 9 to 5 and away on business trips. My dad was almost always home, and if he was on set, I was either there or probably on my way there.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, he had the life where he included you in the beginning.
Sure.
I mean,
Some would say too much, but it's all relative.
well,
Yeah.
there are stories about that, right?
Marijuana. I mean, if I could include having marijuana use at a young age or something, the chemical distance.
Well, he included you in some adult things while you were still a kid.
Sure.
Maybe it wasn't the best decision. But
All right. Now you have your own kids. I mean, how do you look at that now being an adult? Do you think it was naivete on his part, or do you feel like can you just handle it?
Well, the 80s were a period piece. And if you go back further to like the 60s or 70s, that's kind of our own ancient history. And so it might as well be like the Renaissance back in the 1660s. You just had kind of a different set of priorities, a different set of tools and responsibilities for living the examined life or whatever. And I just choose to remember it fondly.
I read a story where your dad backed you up when you told the school you weren't really interested in being in the school. And looking back, you think your father really felt like he was doing you a favor at that point? Or I mean, I guess what I want to know is, with your age and wisdom and experience,
Right.
how did that influence your idea of right and wrong, or did you have to relearn what's right and wrong?
Well, if you think about the negotiation generation of the very child-centric 90s, where kids are now off to school, or they're dropped out, or they're wondering what they're going to do, or they're in college and wondering what they're going to do. Previous to that, there was this kind of stoic mindset of there comes a time when you have to boot your kid out of the nest to show them that blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure that goes back to, post-war stuff and probably turn of the century stuff. And I'm sure it just goes back and goes back and goes back. But that's why it's kind of, been in this kind of reverie lately. And that's why it's kind of been a good time to be catching up and, just talking, and, we're not trying to sell soap. We're just trying to, talking and I just think, I drove down on the way down here. I drove by the junior high school that I used to go to, and I was, used to jog around the track there with my boom box, listening to Michael Jackson's "Off the Wall," and it's just like, who was that person?
Ducky, Ducky, I'm sorry.
I
Remember
was
that?
just a product of this huge influx of music and commercialism and all that stuff, and it's just amazing to me. I couldn't really place myself back there from where I am now, and I couldn't really imagine this being the end result of where I was back then. It's just very mysterious.
You always come across to me, and you come as a guy who doesn't make excuses for himself. It's sort of like part of a previous generation in terms of, like my father, he never really made excuses for himself. You don't make excuses for yourself, and yet I find that dichotomy, that's hard to balance that dichotomy with somebody who went through so many personal things. Things have been aired in the public, and we've aired their public laundry before, but still, you don't make excuses for yourself.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. That was, I don't know, whatever little was dealt to me or whatever I dealt to myself. That was just, I decided that was the card I dropped.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Maybe it was intelligent people I've heard complaining about people who live forever blaming others for what clearly was their responsibility for doing or not doing. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't have that. It would have been very convenient.
Too convenient for some people.
I don't know why, but
Let me switch gears a little bit. When's the last time you had to audition for something?
the last time recently was for Iron Man, so
really?
2006, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, was it 30 years you're doing this? You have to audition. I mean, what was that like?
Is that a knock? Is that like
No, I'm just asking. To audition again. I mean, after being such a
Well, everything has value, and if you try to resist something, you just make more out of it. I think everybody has their 5 things that they're quietly resisting doing, and a good day for them is when none of those resistances come up and directly confront them,
Yeah.
And more than making excuses, I think maybe I just realized that why should I be spared what anybody else would, and also in their defense, I hadn't exactly played Mr. Johnny Handgun or some kind of
That's true.
sexy, charming guy who then you're going to put in this big machine and pretend he's going to kick ass and save the world. So,
I think
Was
the
there
same-
any anxiety? I mean, did you feel any at the
Yeah,
audition?
yeah, but anxiety's relative, To me, anxiety, I think, is being conscious of how much you're avoiding preparation. I think so. There's certain anxiety that, someone calls it doom light. You wake up in the morning and nothing's happening, but your head's going and, you think there's something afoot. That, to me, that's just like normal, that's like sweeping your storefront in the morning. That's just like normal maintenance. But then the anxiety of an upcoming challenge or opportunity, or when there's like a definitive, like your life's going to go one way or the other based on the result of this day, and no matter if you're just self-soothing by preparing and preparing and preparing, I tend to look at these things in a semi-military way, like check your equipment, get ready. Lives are saved by tough drill instructors, and in the absence of one, you have to be your own.
No, it's great, but you've been under contract. You've been so busy the last number of years with Iron Man and everything else. And I mean, what's next for Robert Downey? Is there kind of a break, or what's next for Robert Downey Jr.?
Well, transitions are always tough. There's always like you simultaneously feel comforted by something and also restrained by it. But the truth is that the Iron Man and trilogy and Avengers and Sherlock, I mean, none of that's been limiting. In fact, it's given me a tremendous amount of freedom, and now I'm looking for this transitioning to this production company with the missus, and also I think maybe moving to greener pastures along those lines, trying some different things. But also I think maybe this is something you can agree to as well. I mean, oftentimes when you're out there doing your job, your craft, or however gnarly you want to get about it, you're not afforded the same privileges that other people are. You're not really living the real life. You're traveling because you're doing a gig, or you're going somewhere because you haven't been home for 3 weeks. So essentially, I just feel like there's just a big part of me that has just such an incomplete education that I'd like to bring a better me to bear for, I don't know, for whoever I'm at a dinner party with, you know, and also at the age of like 52 now, it's not about catching up. It's more about just making space for things that time I never had, you know. And
with that, we're going to have to, I want to continue this
Well, there's
conversation.
got to be a better you than I
Yeah.
just would.
And I want to continue this amazing logic, laser-like perception. It's so it's mesmerizing to hear you. And please come back, Robert.
Sure.
And now we're going to cut to a Skype
Appreciate
interview with
Anytime.
Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Vivian Schnaidman with Laura Doyle, relationship expert. Thanks again, Robert. We'll be seeing you.
sure.
I am Vivian Schnaidman, and I am the Chief Medical Correspondent for Breezin with Bierman. And I'm so honored and thrilled and grateful to be here with New York Times bestselling author and relationship expert Laura Doyle. I am so happy today to finally have the opportunity to interview her. So I would just like Laura to tell us a little bit about herself, and I'll just let her go. Laura, please tell us.
Well, I was the perfect wife until I actually got married. And when I tried to tell my husband how to be more ambitious and tidier and more romantic, he avoided me. So I dragged him to marriage counseling, thinking I'll have the therapist fix him and then I can finally be happy, because that's how it works. And when we got to therapy, that's when it seemed the most hopeless. I realized we were just too far apart and he was never going to change. And so I felt like either my choices were to live in a loveless relationship for the rest of my life or to get a divorce. There was just one problem. I didn't want to get a divorce because I was too embarrassed. People had been to the wedding not that many years before. So as a last-ditch effort, I started asking women who had been married for what seemed like an eternity, which was 15 years, for their secrets of a happy marriage. And the things that they said didn't even make sense to me. I remember one woman said, I try never to criticize my husband, no matter how much it seems like he deserves it. And I said, have you got anything else? I just didn't think I could do that. But in my desperation, I did start experimenting in my marriage. I took all their suggestions and I tried them. And if they worked, I kept them. And if they didn't, I threw them out. And I just remember I'd been practicing what I call the intimacy skills now. That's what emerged from this exercise. And I'd been practicing them for a while. And I remember I came home one night, and as I walked through the door, my husband's face lit up. He was happy to see me again. And that had been gone for a long time. So I thought, wow, this is working. So instead of watching TV and avoiding me or even being reluctant to make love to me, he was seeking out my company, and we were laughing together again and holding hands. And it's just been magical. So then I realized that part of the formula was I couldn't control my husband anymore. So I started controlling my girlfriends by telling them what they should do in their marriages. And for some reason they did that. I'd say this or say that. And they also had just miraculous stories to report. So we ended up with a little support group in my living room. There were 5 of us. And then I wrote a book about what I had learned. And when Dateline NBC came and did an investigative report about it, the book went to #1 on Amazon and became a New York Times bestseller. And now my books are published in 19 languages in 30 countries. So I guess I wasn't the only one who was controlling her husband. But it's just been a platform I never dreamed that I would have. But I now have this wonderful community of other women who are practicing the intimacy skills, other empowered wives who are not settling for just an ordinary relationship. They want to have an amazing, vibrant relationship full of passion and playfulness. So that's how I spend my days.
That's so amazing. So how does a wife become empowered?
Well, for me, I knew for sure that all the problems in my marriage were because of my husband. He watched too much TV, and he was a slob, and he wasn't making enough money, and he was just kind of a loser pants in general. And so I went about trying to improve him, never dreaming that I was actually the one that was causing all the issues in my marriage. It turned out all of them, because when I changed, the man who wooed me returned, and he has become all the things that I wished for. For instance, I remember one of my complaints for him was, I used to say, like, why don't you ask for a raise? Or why don't you try to figure out how to get a better job? Or why don't you make more money? And the subtext of that was, you don't make enough money. That's what he heard, because that's what I was saying. And then he got to the point where he quit his job. He wasn't making any money. And I was incredibly resentful and bitter about that. And then I heard Lee Miltier tell a story about how one of her clients came to a class that she taught on the power of autosuggestion. And Lee said this woman left the class realizing that she'd been reinforcing to her husband that he had a terrible temper. So every time he lost his temper, she'd say, that's just like you, to lose your temper. You always lose your temper. And so she left the class thinking, you know what, I'm going to change it up. What can it hurt? I'm just going to start saying, that's not like you, to lose your temper. So she went home and waited for him to get angry, and she didn't have to wait very long. And as soon as he lost his temper, she said, that's not like you, to lose your temper. And their 12-year-old son said, yes, it is, Mom. He always loses his temper. But she decided to stick to her guns. So a little while later, not that long later, they were at a restaurant and the service was really slow, and the husband started to fume and said, I have a good mind to call the manager over here and let him know how long we've been waiting. And then he stopped himself and he looked at her and he said, that's not like me, to lose my temper, is it? And she just nearly fell out of the booth because she was so shocked that it worked so fast. So I heard this story and I thought, I'm gonna try this. And so I started affirming to my husband, instead of saying, you need to make more money, I said, you've always been a good provider. And then just for fun, I started calling him Mr. Moneybags. And so it was not long at all after that he started his own business for the first time. He started a video company. He's had it for many years now, probably almost 20 years now. And he does very well. He's more successful than he's ever been. And I still, to this day, he'll get a check in the mail or something. I'll go, oh, look at Mr. Moneybags, has lots of money. And he's a great provider. And that feels very true to me. It doesn't feel like a stretch at all. But it did feel like a stretch when I first started saying it. So the way I empowered myself was by looking at what I was bringing to the party and changing it up. And that's what I see women all over the world being able to do in their relationships too, to really use our power wisely. We women have so much power in relationships. And a lot of times no one has ever taught us the intimacy skills that we need to feel desired and adored and cherished the way we all want to be.
Everything you're saying is so amazing. And I'm a psychiatrist, and we are just not taught any of this. When in my training, I was taught that when a marriage is seriously broken and there have been years of anger and resentment, sometimes it's better to just get a divorce. What do you think?
Adam Bierman back again. I think we just saw Laura Doyle, amazing relationship expert. Now, a favorite thing I like to do, we have actor, coach, thespian Jody Wood will lead us through some improv. And also take his class, jodywoodacting.com, jwacting.com. Jody, go ahead.
jwactorstudio.com. What we do in this workshop that I do around the city here, the town here, is we do a lot of improv-based work, whether we're doing serious acting or comedy improv. So we're going to do a little bit of that tonight. And a couple of you are actually in the workshop, which is pretty cool. And Sandra's making her improv debut on television. That takes a lot of...
And if I may say, I am not a native English speaker, so it might be more difficult more difficult for me.
She's lowering the bar. She's not native English speaker.
Bar. But English is not my first.
And you wasted another 1 minute now. Thank you.
Well, let's do it in let's do it in gibberish. Make it more funny.
I speak that way sometimes, as my wife can attest.
After a couple of drinks.
No, just naturally.
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 Anyway, the foundation of improvisation, if anybody want to learn about this, is are two simple words that can change your life, actually. But as far as improvisation, yes, and. Yes, I'm listening to you, and I'm going to build on your idea. In improvisation, there are just a couple of rules, one of which is don't deny, which means don't poo-poo the idea. Build on it, whether you like it or not. Something's going to happen from somewhere. Make eye contact, make sure we're listening to one another, and don't go for the joke. You know, if it's comedy improv, it'll just be. Spontaneity is usually funny, and plus we give you situations, as you will see, that are kind of call for being bizarre and zany and funny anyway. So it doesn't have to be that they have to sit here now and have the pressure's on them to be funny. That's not what it's about. And Adam's a pretty funny guy, but looks aren't everything. So let's try the yes and exercise, and I'll begin. I think you're all familiar with it. I'm going to start up with a statement, and you'd build on my idea. It was really hot these past couple of days.
Yes, and we had to put on the air conditioning, and that cost money.
Yes, and in my office, there's very little money, and the heat was on.
Yes, but I really don't
yes,
care.
And.
Okay, yes, and I really don't care
time.
because it was 90 degrees, and my husband thinks that we can live with 90 degrees and sleep, which is even worse, with a bed so
Yes, and Adam said that it's usually pretty hot in bed whenever, no matter what time of year.
Yes,
you guys are in bed together.
Yes, and sometimes you can save money because the bed can become its own sauna, so you don't have to go to the sauna.
Yes, and saunas come from Norway.
Yes, and I don't like that other thing that I don't know that they go in a pool and then they go in the sauna. What is that? It's I guess I screw it up because I'm asking a question, right? Right?
Yes, and it's always fun to follow up someone that doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
Yes, and sometimes when you don't know what you're doing, sometimes you do find interesting things.
Yeah.
Yes, and I find so many things interesting whenever I come here.
And yes, and I find so many wackadoodles when I come here.
Yes, and there are a lot of wackadoodles in Princeton. Let's just be
Yes,
honest
and
here.
if they came more, maybe they'd be less wacky.
Yes, and wackadoodle is actually a professional term.
Yes, and there you are, because you can say that maybe. Wackadoodles.
Yes, and saving a wackadoodle sounds like something you would have done in prehistoric times.
Yes, in prehistoric times, I wonder how many of these wackadoodles would actually survive.
Yes, and I think that some of them have actually survived to this very day, and they come to visit me.
Yes, and I think that it's not only your office, but it's also this town that is full of wackadoodles.
Yes, and when you see wackadoodles coming down the street, you must turn directly 90 degrees and walk the other way and whistle, and they'll go away.
Yes, and Walk This Way is one of my favorite Aerosmith songs.
Well, yes, and that was a major change in topic.
Yes.
Yes, and I was
was.
thinking about how Adam is a magnet of wackadoodles. Coming back to the topic.
Yes, and I think that the Kraft Bakery Company should come up with a new cheese doodle called Wackadoodles.
Instead of a snickerdoodle.
All right, good. Nice job,
Okay.
guys.
Okay.
Awesome. That's just the basis of, and always do that in our classes. This is a very simple game. I'll start with you guys so we get the idea. It's called one-word story or one-word sentence. We're going to create a sentence one word at a time, which means we're just listening to each other. That's the foundation of improvisation, is listening to each other. So I'll start. Thursdays,
I,
Go
To
the
family,
of
a friend.
who
is
a
Gay person.
one-word stories.
does like a focus here.
And
And we
like
Him.
very,
much.
let's start a new sentence.
yesterday
I.
Went
To
the
Movies.
and
8
a
Big.
pot
of
popcorn.
And.
it
was
Delicious.
But.
afterward
the
Intestines
Where.
rumbling.
mightily. Period.
All right, so
Good.
based on that, I am now going to host a game called Three-Headed Expert. You guys are now one person with three heads. And let's say you're an expert in
Isn't your brain opening?
you're an expert in fashion design.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you some questions, but you will answer one word at a
And can
time.
I say a pet peeve? You have to remember who went last. You have to pay
I
attention.
was going to just say that.
Sorry.
If Adam said the last word, like my name is Dr. Shivago, whatever. Next question, you would begin because Vivian had the last word the last time.
Fuck us.
So I'll
No, not question.
point
This is
to
a
you if you
family
don't.
program.
There's a story I have about this Eastern European director that I worked with one time said, it's very important for an actor to fuck us. You need to fuck us. Fuck us. What are you laughing at, Wood? No, nothing. Nothing what you said is just funny. Nothing. All right, anyway. You're an expert in fashion. Thank you so much for coming in today. What is your name?
My
Name?
Is
Fenlon.
Zhivago.
You got to think about that for a second, didn't you? Okay, well, it's just past the spring. What's the fashion looking like for fall of 2017?
shoulder pads.
Again, one word.
No, that is a thing.
It's
Shoulder pads.
hyphenated.
Yes.
Shoulder pads.
Will
B.
The
in
Statement.
even
after
Labor.
the
You know, that's a question I've always wondered. Who makes up these rules? Like you cannot wear white pants after Labor Day. I mean, why not?
the
Republican.
party.
makes
Up.
This
fascist
Regimen.
that
we
Follow.
So if you see someone wearing white pants after Labor Day, you can pretty much think that they're a liberal. Is that true?
probably.
Huh. Well, more power to them. What if I decided to wear a big floral dress and a big hat? That if I want to make a statement. What do you think
You-
about that?
would
Look.
Like
a
More.
like a what?
Moron.
I would look like a moron. Good. Well, that wouldn't be the first time.
No need of the dress.
fuck us.
You do not want to see me in a dress. Trust me. But I'm just saying, why is it? It seems that fashion is geared more toward women than men. It's like men wear jackets and ties, or there's this onesie coming out for men apparently this summer. Have you seen that? And if so, why the hell would they make a onesie for a man?
Metrosexuals
Need
Options.
and
we
Like.
to
give
Them.
the
option
Of.
wearing
Different.
Clothes.
That's awesome. I really appreciate it. We've learned a lot about the fashion industry, and it was awesome. Now we're going to do a game based. I'm going to bring that level up a little bit with a game called Novel. The three of them are going to create a story right before our very eyes and ears. Usually in improv you get a suggestion from the audience, but there's no audience here, so I will come up with it. Let's do a murder mystery. And the title of the murder mystery is The Clown with the Bloody Scissors.
Ooh,
Okay.
Scary.
that's a
And
good
now-
one.
All right. Well, that won't take that long.
Okay.
And we're going to put our novels out. And then when I point to you, you start the story. And then I'll point to someone else, and you pick up right from where they left off to build this story together. And then I'll wrap it up by saying this is how it ends, so you know. Okay? The Clown with the Scissors making its debut here in Princeton, New Jersey.
There was a clown who walked around town. At first, people liked him, but then he became very menacing. Children would run. Then the bodies started coming. They found him in weird places. First, the wackadoodles died. But then even the sane people.
And though some people were happy that the wackadoodles died, it's still people were afraid, and they didn't know which was going to be the group of people that were going to be killed next. Schools were in constantly state of emergency. They were drills. Hospitals, they had a lot of
casualties. But then the women in the quilting guild noticed that whenever they started to take their scissors out to cut their fabric, their special expensive Gingers fabric scissors, they were covered with blood. And this was completely unacceptable because those scissors are only for fabric. They're very expensive. We don't cut anything else except for fabric. And these women were getting very
antsy and start suspecting of each other because the scissors were kept in a special box because they were expensive, they were unique, and they were only for fabrics. Well, who of them dared to use them in such material different from
the other materials? And then one woman who looked like your gentle Aunt Becky was actually tenacious Sherlock Holmes, named Miss Flutensnoof. She said, I'm going to find this clown, because these are expensive scissors, and they're interrupting our coffee clutch, especially when we want to knit. It's really irritating. So she set a trap. She did what any other kind of grandmother did. She baked pies, knowing this clown would be hungry. When you kill people, you get hungry. So
she baked these pies. She also corrected Adam between the difference between quilting and knitting, because it's very important.
I was going to do that, but
Meanwhile, the police had confiscated all the bloody scissors. So they also decided to set a trap. So they came to Princeton TV and they took all the cameras out of the studio and they set them up behind balls of yarn and piles of fabric so that if anybody came to steal any more of these expensive scissors, they would be able to get a clear videotape.
And on the other hand, there was another member of this club who was very worried about the pies. He thought, why are we making pies? We have to sell these pies. So she decided to kill Miss Flutensnoof. That complicated things even more. But the clown who liked Miss Flutensnoof's pies, not knowing that it was actually bait to get the clown killed this woman.
and this is how it ends.
And then we find out that the owner of the quilt shop had actually sewed herself a clown costume and decided to kill everybody in town who she thought was a better quilter than she was. But because she had fallen on her head once, she thought that all the wackadoodles were better quilters, which was completely preposterous because they didn't even own sewing machines.
Or scissors.
Yeah.
Or scissors.
The end. This has been enlightening. Now I don't want to die because I feel much better now after doing improv. Another amazing
Great job, guys.
Breezy with Bierman. Great job. And we'll see you next month.